Thanks to Alana's incredible time-traveling camera, she and Jackson are in a new and exciting place in time. Let's listen in on their conversation and see if you can learn where they are. Wow, Alana, I know there are some cool places in our time, but these ancient dwellings are fantastic. Where are we? Who lives here? This is Mesa Verde, Jackson, and the ancestral Pueblans live here. They're just one group of ancient native people who lived here before Europeans came. There's a name for groups or cultures who were here before Christopher Columbus stumbled onto the shores of North America, right? Don't we call them pre-Columbian? Yep, pre is a prefix that means before. And these people first settled here around 700 or 750 BCE. My camera says we're in the year 500 CE. That's way before Columbus sailed from Europe. It's also a few hundred years before they all disappear from this location. Did you know the ancestral Puebloans were highly advanced? Whoa, back up. They disappeared? Just like that? You have got to be kidding me. Next, I suppose you're going to tell me they were abducted by aliens? Jackson, there are some people who believe that. But scientists don't see alien abduction as a good theory. We know the ancestral Puebloans were definitely ahead of their time. They built these huge, amazing places to live in the sides of mountains. They were skilled farmers who grew corn, squash, and beans. They also baked their pottery to make it strong, and wove baskets out of plant fibers. I remember now. They were some of the first American Indian tribes to use bows and arrows. But they also had some things in common with other tribes. They respected life and used everything they could in the environment. They also decorated a lot of everyday objects with art. Yes, they even painted stones with drawings of just about everything they did. Well, everything except where they went, that is. What about that, Alana? Is this the only place they lived? Oh no, there were ancestral Puebloan communities in Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Arizona. Remember? Now that you mention it, I do. But you still haven't explained their disappearance. Well, there are three popular theories. The first one has to do with a major drought around the year 1100 CE. Some experts think the crops dried up and that the people abandoned their homes because they needed more food. They had to find a place with more water. That doesn't explain why archaeologists found clothes and pottery and even food in the cliff dwellings. If your crops had died, you wouldn't just get up and move in the middle of dinner time, would you? Good point, Jackson. That's why there's more than one theory. The second one is that there was a battle. Some historians think an enemy tribe came and killed the ancestral Puebloan people. Did anyone find bodies or skeletons around here? If another tribe killed everyone, what happened to the bodies? I'm not sure that theory could be right either. That's a good point. The last theory is that aliens abducted them. Most scientists laugh at that idea, of course. But no one has figured out for sure how the people living here disappeared without a trace. It's almost as if they left the planet. Besides, they aren't the only civilization to disappear. Have you heard about the people of Easter Island or the ancient Maya? There's no evidence for that last theory. This is just a really amazing mystery. I think I'll come up with a theory of my own. Oh, Jackson, you have such a great imagination. Maybe you should also study to become an archaeologist. These ancient Americans were builders, farmers, and artists. Real American Indian people who left behind evidence of their culture for us to study. How did they vanish? I don't know. But I've got photos to take. Let's get going. Alana and Jackson have told us a little about the ancient people of Mesa Verde, but there is more to learn about the people who lived in the Southwest. These people left clues all over North America that help us learn about how they lived. Every time a new object is found, we learn more about the people who used it. What's in a name? The southwestern United States is rich with artifacts. People who live in this region can find evidence of those who lived there centuries ago. Archaeologists dug into the past and learned about an ancient group of people who seem to have disappeared many years ago. Experts named this group the Anasazi. The name comes from a Navajo word that means ancient ones or ancient enemies. In reality, there was no Anasazi tribe. People who live in the area and share the culture call that group Ancient Puebloans, or the Ancient Pueblo people. Pueblo refers to a home or space where people lived. Pueblos were a group of apartment-like structures that were built side by side. This is where most experts begin when they want to talk about the ancient culture of the Southwest. Nomads, basket makers, and farmers. Archaeologists have found artifacts that suggest people have been living here as far back as 1500 BCE. Groups from that time are usually called archaic. The word archaic means very old. These groups were nomadic and moved from place to place. They hunted animals and gathered from plants for food, clothes, and shelter. As time passed, the archaic Indians learned special skills. One of these skills was weaving baskets. They wove their baskets tightly and covered them with a substance that made them waterproof. The baskets could be used for many different jobs, including farming. Some experts called this group the basket makers. Eventually, the basket makers changed their way of life. Sometime between 500 BCE and 750 CE, they stopped moving from place to place and started growing crops for food. Around 550 CE, people settled on the Mesa Verde Plateau. Mesa Verde is Spanish for green table. Today, the Southwest is a dry, hot area filled with cliffs, canyons, and mountains. The groups that settled on Mesa Verde relied on crops such as corn for food. The basket makers who lived together in groups dug pits to use as homes. These pit houses had living spaces that were dug several feet into the ground and logs to hold up the roof. The people also built similar buildings called kivas. As time passed, they started building even larger Pueblo communities. Farmers, craftspeople, and cliff dwellers. The ancient Puebloans grew and advanced a lot between 750 and 1300 CE. Trees and water were not always plentiful, but the farmers and craftspeople were skilled. They built pueblos out of stone or adobe that were 2 or 3 stories tall. The ancient Puebloans lived in these pueblos to escape the heat of the summer and to stay warmer during the winter. They adapted to their natural environment. Many of these buildings had over 50 rooms. Farmers grew enough food for hundreds of people. Baskets became less important as they were replaced with pottery. Smooth white jars and pots that they covered with artistic designs became more common. The Classic period makes up the last 200 years of the ancient Puebloan culture. Villages in the Mesa Verde slowly moved from the mesas or plateaus to the sides of cliffs. Craftspeople learned to build towers with living areas that reached several stories up the sides of cliffs. Experts aren't sure why these people moved to their new homes. Some historians think they moved because the cliffside homes were easier to defend against attackers. We know they still farmed in the river valleys and probably used kivas for special ceremonies. Around 1300 CE, the community at Mesa Verde ended suddenly. The entire area was abandoned. We do not know why they left. Other pueblos in the southwest continued to do well, but the mystery of Mesa Verde is still waiting to be solved. Daily life in ancient pueblos. Anthropologists study different cultures and their customs. It is hard to be sure about beliefs or customs of groups that did not leave written histories. But there is still a lot we can learn about the ancient Puebloans. We know they ate seeds, grains, squash, beans, and corn. They wore animal fur and hides to keep warm, and they used every part of the wild turkeys they hunted. They used bones to make tools and utensils, and used feathers for clothes. People also made knives from stones. Other artifacts include ornaments or jewelry from stones and shells. We've also found their artwork drawn and painted on walls. All of these things have helped anthropologists understand the ancient Puebloan people.